Right. Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to our Houston CCL monthly meeting. And this is our agenda for today. It's a really full agenda. We have a lot of topics to go through. So I'm hoping we'll get through everything. I think we should. Dory's going to be covering a couple of topics for us. She's going to have a separate presentation here on energy independence. We'll have our usual review of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. We'll do our monthly calling campaign, and then we'll get into other miscellaneous topics and then our status reports. All right, Dory, energy independence. So did you have a separate slide deck for this, or?
If I could share screen, if you want to stop sharing for a moment.
Okay, I stopped.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. We were having our steering committee meeting, and we were wondering what maybe special focus we might want to touch on. And since it's July and we've just celebrated our Independence Day, I just thought I would share that for like the last 2 decades, Independence Day has always been for me energy independence. And I thought, well, let me think how that might affect us as citizen lobbyists. And so bear with me and we'll just go through a little history. If I can make this go down. So this is recent history from my perspective. I probably was influenced by the oil embargo of 1973, where we saw the effect of not having oil and the prices going up. And it made, our gut reaction was, let's as a country be energy independent. And then 1998, the same year my company, my husband and I started our company, Grove Solar, we had this peak oil theory going around, and it became more reasons to be independent, and not just our country, but maybe ourselves, and making ourselves less dependent on fossil fuels. And then, it sort of was a kind of peak, a culmination of efforts in the Paris Accord, where globally we all said sort of the same thing. Let's watch our dependence on fossil fuel for other reasons, for the climate. And so all of these had an influence on me and my upbringing. I've always been an energy nut and conserving and hanging my laundry to dry and incorporating solar. And so I switched it around, and instead of energy independence, let's go independence from fossil fuels. Let's try and reduce our addiction on fossil fuels and make it easier to save this planet. And there's a lot of ways to get involved. And Citizens Climate Lobby for me is just a key one, because we're working on whole life cycle costing, putting a price, and I'm sorry about background noise, putting a price on carbon, but also every step we can take to reduce our usage, like weatherizing our home and electrifying our transportation grid, and adding solar or other renewables when we can. But it also takes advocating. And these are just pictures over the years. I won't go over to them, but just advocating for our lifestyle, our planet. And sometimes it takes protesting. That's not what Citizens Climate Lobby is about, but I live with my father-in-law, and I don't know if you can see, but this man in the black, he is physically taped, wired, stranded to another elder. There are 7 elders along this pipeline company that was trying to bring natural gas into Vermont, and they had to saw them apart. So sometimes it takes protesting, but what I love about citizens, and sometimes it takes building, we need to build the renewable infrastructure, and I think that's where Biden's infrastructure plan is going to be great. But with Citizens Climate Lobby, it also takes lobbying. And I love that we don't get in our lobbyists' faces. We do it by respect and gratitude and appreciation. And we're sitting here, Court and I are sitting here at Emerson Church, which a couple years ago we did a campaign here to get them to endorse and support climate legislation, carbon dividend, fee and dividend. And it took it was a whole year's effort, but we stayed at it. So lobbying is just wonderful. And sometimes our government goes the right direction. I thought the Clean Power Plan with Obama was a good direction. He was trying to get the world on board with this. And sometimes energy independence can be used, to me, the wrong way. with the executive order that Trump did to let, reduce, take away the emission ordinances and allow support coal. And there's just ways to make it happen and ways to make it harder to happen. And so I'm excited to be here with you all at Citizens Climate Lobby, where we are advocating for energy innovation through putting a price on carbon and a dividend back to the citizens. And I'm going to now stop sharing and go back, if we could, to the slide that I'm supposed to be sharing about.
Yep, I'll bring that up. Just one
It has
sec.
good talking points. So, and this is what this is our main focus. We have secondary asks, and we care about the climate in general, but this ask has three main components. It has putting a price on carbon, it has a dividend back to the people, and it has a very important border adjustment, so that what we do here in this country can have an effect and has an effect on and is equal and with all the countries that we're importing and exporting to. So the goal is to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and 100% reduction by 2050. And that's net zero. I love it compared to 2010. Financially benefits 90% of low income Americans, 2/3 of all Americans, and is projected to save 4.5 million lives over the next 50 years. So we have challenges in our legislature getting anything passed, but if we can try for bipartisan, that helps. And so our conservative talking points are that it's revenue neutral, it's business friendly, and it's farming and military exemptions. With Joe, you have some great news on the farming aspect of this, of the climate work that we're doing. So I'll stop there, and if there's any questions, we're happy to answer.
Okay, while we've paused here for a minute, we do have a special guest with us today. It's Matt Berg. Matt is running for one of the congressional seats in the Houston district area. And Matt, hey, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and just take a couple of minutes to talk about yourself and what your views are in climate change and what your possible solutions are.
Okay, well, good morning. I didn't realize I'd be talking or that I was a special guest, so thank you. Dory, I will be calling you back. I understand. I got your messages. We were in the final part of our first quarter, so it was a real busy week for us. We're freed up now, so I'll get back in touch with you. I'm Matt Berg. I'm running for Congress against Troy Nehls out here in District 22, which encompasses most of west and south, the west and south suburbs of Houston, from Katy down to Sugar Land, Richmond, Rosenberg, and all the way west through Missouri City, Pearland, and up to Clear Lake. So for now, it's a pretty big district. Who knows what it's going to wind up looking like after we finally get the redistricting finished. But my sights are set on Troy Nehls. So I try and bring in, I think I bring an interesting perspective in that, one, I was in the military for 12 years, and when I left, the first job I got was in oil and gas. That's how I wound up in Fort Bend County. I was hired by National Oil Well. But at the same time, just because I work in oil and gas doesn't mean that I'm blind to the fact that we have a real problem with our climate. And there are people like me in oil and gas that realize that we need to stop thinking that that's the end all be all of our energy. So I talked to a couple of people during my reach outs in the last quarter, and they led me to your group, actually. Stacy Spears, Dr. Miglin out in Austin pointed me to you all, because when they asked me what I felt about climate control, I said I need to do a lot more research, because again, in oil and gas, they don't tend to give us all the information that we want if we ask. So I'm actually here to kind of develop my platform through your inputs. Like I tell all the people I reach out to, on a different perspective, I tell everyone I'm a middle-aged white guy in one of the most diverse districts in the county or in the nation. So I have to talk to everybody in order to get their inputs to my platform. The same goes for non-ethical and cultural topics such as energy. I need to talk to everybody to make sure I get the right input. So right now, what I tell you, might not be what it is after I do more and more research into it. I've started reading about carbon dividends. It's something I just learned in the last month about how that works. And I read the Green New Deal. I am not, so I'm better at drawing it, so I'll bear with me. But, to me, there's the Green New Deal, which, calls for us to just transfer everything to renewables within the next, 1 to 2 years. And then you have the Republican side, which is we're never going to use renewables until we absolutely have to. Well, here's the deal. When I was growing up, I was told we only have 100 years of oil and gas left, and then we're going to have to find something else. And then fracking came. So now we have another 100 years of oil and gas left. But eventually, whether we legislate it or not, we're going to run out. And the intelligent companies, Shell has started waking up. Exxon now has a more aware board of directors as far as climate goes, realize that that's true. And they're starting to transfer into more carbon neutral outputs. And they're also starting to transition some of their portfolio to renewable energy. I think that the government, especially at the federal level where I would be, needs to stop incentivizing oil and gas. I work for oil and gas companies. They make a boatload of money. They don't need the incentives, okay? Those incentives need to be transferred to renewable energy. And we can give them to the oil companies if they're going to use them for renewable energy, which I think they should, because like I said, I'm not really in the camp of the Green New Deal. I think that's too, I think it would, let me see how I'm trying to say this. I'm not a progressive. I'm a moderate Democrat, okay? I think the Green New Deal would hurt our economy because it's too immediate. It needs to happen, but it calls for it too immediately. But it does, where that transition takes place, where that immediacy is, I don't know. I've talked to one of my donors. We had a good conversation. He's a chemical engineer, and he's also a climate scientist. I said 50 years, but that was just a shot in the dark. He said, well, he believes the horizon is more in about the 20-year point, where we have to, if we don't start our energy production being in the majority on renewables in the next 20 years, we're in trouble. Just based off of that, I've changed my outlook to 20 years. It does need to happen, and we need to start working on it now. So that's kind of where I stand, if that makes sense. I'm not for shutting oil and gas off today because we'd be in a world of hurt. Renewables gets a bad rap. They get blamed for everything, right? We saw what Abbott did when we had the February winter storm. He immediately blamed wind energy and solar energy, which is ridiculous, as we all know, because somehow it seems to work in Wisconsin, where they have wind turbines that work just fine in winter blizzards. So that's ridiculous. If we go completely green tomorrow, shut off oil and gas, there's no backbone. There's, the Green New Deal doesn't says nothing about energy or nuclear energy. It doesn't allow for the technologies that currently exist for carbon scrubbing. So there's a lot of stuff missing in that Green New Deal that I think would leave us hurting if we turn to it tomorrow. So again, I'm not so far this way for the Green New Deal, but I'm definitely not so far this way that I'm going to pretend like climate change isn't an issue. So I'm right there in the middle, working on where that transition needs to happen and how the federal government would help that transition happen starting today. Does that make sense? I
appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you joining. We have a really full agenda, so I'm going to continue on. But before I do, one of the activities we do here at Citizens Climate Lobby is that we meet with our representatives, our members of Congress, on a regular basis. This year, just alone, we've already met twice with some of our representatives, and we'll be meeting with them again later this year. So in that vein, I'll give my 1-minute elevator speech. Since you're on the call with us, I'm lobbying you today. So we are a bipartisan organization. We're not going to necessarily support for candidates on the left or on the right. We like to be middle of the road, and we do like to be bipartisan. And our marquee legislation that we want to have passed and that we're advocates for is the HR 2307. It's on the screen right here, Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And the reason that we feel that this is really one of the best approaches is that it does fall right in the middle. It's something that conservatives can support. It's something that people on the left can support. We are solution neutral in the sense that we're not going to, well, we all have our own personal opinions, of course, but from an organizational perspective, we are solution neutral. You know, possibly we can solve climate change through carbon capture and sequestration. Possibly we need a lot more renewables, but in the sense of our bill, HR 2307, it's a market-based solution. Whatever the market drives in whatever direction the market determines to most quickly solve climate change, that's what we're advocates for. And the way it works is a gradual increase in the carbon fee over a period of time for a gradual transition. It's not going to happen immediately. We understand that. We don't want to disrupt the economy, but over a gradual period of time, the carbon fee will increase year by year. And as it increases, the market will drive, it'll drive out the most expensive solutions, which the carbon fee applies directly to fossil fuel production, of course. And anything not using fossil fuels will, at that point, have a market incentive, right? They will have a, the market will be driven to those less expensive solutions. Within a matter of a few months, having the carbon fee will immediately start making a change in driving the market in the right direction by providing that price signal. And the dividend part of it allows lower and middle income people that maybe will not be able to afford higher energy costs with the means to compensate for those higher costs that will be coming. So the lower half of the population, all Americans, will be getting the carbon dividend. And as people stop using fossil fuels, they can use that carbon dividend for any purpose they would like. If they're not using any fossil fuels at all, of course, you know, maybe they just want to bank that, put that in the bank and use it for other purposes. The other key factor here, which we haven't talked about, is the border carbon adjustment. I'm not sure if you've heard about that or familiar with it, but once the border carbon adjustment, which is one of the key points of this bill, goes into effect, it becomes a domino effect in the sense that other trading partners of the US will then eventually be driven to also have a carbon fee. What happens is that if countries who don't have a carbon fee want to export their fossil fuel products into the US, there will be a tax on that. That's an import duty. And their products will become more expensive. They're going to lose market share. And the opposite of that is that if the US is exporting fossil products to countries that do not have a carbon fee, then those companies that are exporting receive a cash rebate. So in other words, it will not hurt American businesses. They will be compensated if they're trying to export to countries that do not have that carbon fee. And for countries that have carbon fees, like we want the US to have, then it's basically a wash. There's no impact at all in that trade. The EU, the European Union, will be having their own border fee adjustment in the next year or two. It's inevitable, it's going to be coming. At that point, once that goes into effect, if the US has not passed legislation like this or similar, and we don't have our own border carbon adjustment, US companies will then be impacted negatively because they will then have to pay import duties to the European Union. I think I covered most of the points. If I've missed anything, anyone else, feel free to jump in for just another minute.
And you have some hands raised, Joe.
Oh, go ahead. I can't see them, but just go ahead and talk.
John Glover and then John Seagram.
Go ahead.
Okay, mine doesn't have to do with what you said. I have a question for Matt. Matt, are you familiar with, have you seen the Climate Interactive's En-ROADS climate simulation tool?
No, I have not, sir.
Okay, so if you'd give me the opportunity sometime, we can, if I can connect with you, it's a tool I can show you what some of the trade-offs are and various actions taken for climate. And most importantly, is while I'm showing you that, you learn how to use the tool and you can do all the investigations you want yourself. It's an online tool and I'd be happy to show that to you.
Yeah, Dory and Joe, if you don't mind, can I give everybody my contact info in case you have any
Sure.
questions after this? Okay.
Yeah, just put it in the chat window.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Were there
you.
other raised hands? Let's move through this quickly so we can go on.
John Seagram.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for joining us, Matt. And you mentioned the need for kind of a balanced policy. And we say sometimes that we are not anti-fossil fuel, we're anti-greenhouse gas emission. And so we know the importance of the fossil fuel industry to the Texan economy. Any greenhouse gas emissions that fossil fuel companies capture and sequester, they get refunded the carbon fee that Joe was talking about. And so just wanted to point that out. And then to ask quickly, Matt, do you have any specific questions about how carbon fee and dividend would work?
Not yet. Like I said, Dr. Miglin out in Austin and had given me a whole bunch of research on carbon dividends. It's kind of how I found out about it in the first place. So I'm reading through it now. I'm sure after I read it all, I will have questions, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and look at what she gave me. But I will reach out. I appreciate that, John.
And then Jack had his hand raised, but I don't see it.
Jack, go ahead if you
Can
want
you
to
hear
speak up.
me?
Yeah,
Yep,
we
okay.
hear you. Go ahead.
All right, great. So I'm on the phone, simply dialed in. So thanks for joining that. And so just, I come from more of a conservative, and maybe I sit in an evangelical box with some of my beliefs, but, so things get polarized. I think one of the really great things CCL does is really try to say, what can we agree on, and being respectful about that. So I think I just want to echo the point basically that someone brought up about, fossil fuels are not evil. God made coal. You could say he made wind, and a lot of it. He also made mercury, right? So, but we have to be aware of how we use them. So yeah. So and just also, you said you shifted your timeline up about 20 years based on what we need for the climate. I would say if you look at the research, you could even say the situation is more dire. We're already seeing some circumstances. I'm looking at where my wife's family lives in California, and we're looking to, if we have to take care of them, what do we have to do? And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen to some of their homes, right? And some of the other repercussions. So just to point out, the need may be more dire than some people say, but we still need to have that respectful conversation. And some of the language that how we pose things can be helpful in terms of, we're not saying that this one is bad or this one's evil, but we do need to say, how do we attack this together as a society and address the needs we do. So I think the market-based mechanism to that, seeing the need and then saying, how do we be stewards in terms of environmentally and economically, is really maybe a messaging point to try to look at how we approach finding solutions together.
I agree. I mean, right now, everything's being politicized, right? So, you've got the far left and the far right. The far, for instance, you could parallel gun control with the environmental concerns. The far left wants gun control, but when they, you have the moderates want gun control, but the far left says we're going to take all your weapons away. So the right says, well, then we're not going to do anything about gun control. We're not going to talk to you. In the environment, you have the far left that says we're going to take away all your oil and gas. The right says, well, then we're not going to talk to you when you want to do climate control. Meanwhile, all of us in the middle are like, we need to do something. We don't need to get rid of all the oil and gas. We don't need to, pretend it's not happening, but there is something that needs to be done. And that's, like I said, that's why I'm here, trying to figure out what we all need to be done. So the more input I get, the better.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for that. We're going to move on now, or we'll completely run out of time. All right. So on this slide and the next slide, here are references that support the HR 2307 with, for example, there's a question and answer document, and Matt, and for everybody else on the call, in a few minutes, I'll put the web link for the slide deck into the chat window. Everybody will have access to the slide deck, and that means once you get my link, you'll be able to click on all these and go directly to them. And these are excellent resources for additional information. Here's slide 2. So, all right, and now we're up to the next section of our agenda, our monthly chapter meeting call. Call steps. Dory, you going to walk us through this?
Okay. So every month we try and call, again, respectfully and with gratitude and appreciation, but we let them know that we care about the climate and we want them to take action. So this is that process. And you're going to watch me make a call, and I'm not really ready. So maybe Court's ready to make a call. Ready to make a call?
continue on. Hopefully everybody made their monthly calls. And let me put this back into presenting mode. All right, so miscellaneous topics. So let me go ahead and put these web links into the chat window now. And so 2 links there. One is for our Houston chapter web link to get to our community webpage. And the second one is the link to this slide deck so that everybody can click on all those links that you're seeing and that you'll see coming up. Oops. All right, next page here, more miscellaneous topics. Some very exciting legislation items in the news that I wanted to share. And I covered all of these in the newsletter that just went out on Monday. First of all, right at the top of the list, we have one more HR 2307 endorsement from one of our Texas reps, and that's Texas Rep Lloyd Doggett in the Texas 35 district. So he has officially become our second co-sponsor from Texas, and that's extremely exciting. Next item here, SJ Res 14. This was the bill that just passed through the House and also through the Senate several weeks ago to repeal the EPA methane emission changes, right? During the prior presidential administration, the EPA methane emission standards were taken away. And so this SJ Res 14 put them back into effect, reinstating them. And an item of note here was that here in the Houston metro area, we had 4 yes votes from our reps in Houston. That was extremely exciting. And anytime that any of our members of Congress do something good, we always like to thank them. And so we did send out thank yous to those 4 reps on our social media. The next item, also extremely exciting news for climate change. This is the Senate bill, Senate 1251, called the Growing Climate Solutions Act of 2021, that was passed through the Senate. And with 2 yes votes from our senators, from both Senator Cornyn and Cruz. And again, that's another very exciting piece of news. And so again, we put out thank yous to both of our senators on our social media. And then lastly on this page, another bit of exciting good news. Rep. John Curtis, Republican from Utah, launched the Republican Conservative Climate Caucus, aimed at educating its members about climate change. So that's another positive move, something heading in the right direction. We're a bipartisan organization, and the more support we get from either the left or the right helps us with our objective of helping to solve climate change. So wanted to make sure everybody saw that. And again, these were items that we covered in our most recent newsletter. More miscellaneous topics. We've had some recent changes in our leadership at CCL and wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of this. Let me move this out of the way. In the lobby lever, Sarah Moore is going to be moving out of town to accept a new job offer. And so John Segrin has volunteered to become our new lobby leader. In the grassroots lever, Jimmy Hackett also is moving out of town to accept a new job offer. Mark Haranon has volunteered to become our new grassroots leader. Thank you, Mark. Grass tops, because John is moving to the lobby lever lead, Court Hall has volunteered to take over the leadership for grass tops. Thank you, Court. In the media lever and also CCL Houston chapter leader, myself, Joe Garfunkel, no change. I'm not moving to take a job anywhere, so I'll be here. And chapter development, Dory, again, no change with Dory. And then one more item here, just so everybody is aware, in the Texas District 18, Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, we've had a change in CCL liaison. The previous liaison from CCL, Justin Smith, is also moving out of town to accept a job. And so Judith Hyatt has volunteered for upcoming CCL training. John Glover put in a plug for this earlier. Thank you, John, for mentioning that. And here we have an upcoming CCL training course on En-ROADS, En-ROADS update and hosting climate simulations. For anyone who may be interested, the link is there. And this is scheduled for Thursday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. And as usual with all of our CCL training, it's always recorded. If anyone misses that date, can't attend, you can always just go back to this link and look at the recorded training on that. Another one that's coming up, which also is another interesting topic, CCL training, economics of carbon fee and dividend policies. This is one of our core volunteer training sessions coming up on Tuesday, July 27th, 7 p.m. The link is there. And, our training calendar is always chock full with other courses coming up. And so the last link there is for the full training calendar just to see whatever, to see what else is out there. Also today, we have our own Houston monthly chapter meeting in the morning. We end at noon. And then immediately after we end at noon, we have our CCL National monthly meeting with a speaker. And the speaker that'll be talking today is Ali Kelly, Executive Director of the RAY. And I thought this was very interesting. Let me just read that. Whoops, go back to the previous page. I clicked and it moved. And so here I'll just read out. One of the virtues of carbon pricing is that it'll spur technological innovation. What kind of innovation? For a glimpse of that potential, we turn this month to Ali Kelly, a director of the RAY, a nonprofit that is reimagining our roadways to be greener and safer. And that's immediately after our meeting today, starting at noon. And the links are here if anyone is interested and wants to join that. And now we're up to the bottom half of our agenda where we'll go through the status updates from each of our 5 levers, lobby team, grass tops, grassroots, media, and then chapter development. And so starting with lobby team, Sarah and John.
Sure. So yeah, first, I just want to say thank you to everybody in CCL for a great experience volunteering with you guys. I've had a lot of fun and I'll miss you. So this will be my last meeting, but yeah, just wanted to say thank you. And so, yeah, as John mentioned, we lobbied a few weeks ago in June. In the Houston area, we met with 2 out of 7 to 8, depending on how you count, offices in the Houston area. So make sure that you're calling your representative like we are in our meeting every month so that we can try to get more meetings next time. And just to give everybody a little ray of hope, as Joe mentioned, Representative Doggett, who's a representative in the Austin area, has signed on as a co-sponsor to HR 2307, which is really, really, really exciting news for the state of Texas. This is our 2nd co-sponsor. So, I just bring this up to give everybody hope that what we're doing is not in vain. The team that's lobbying Representative Doggett has been in the same position that we have all been. They've been meeting with him 4 times a year for years and years, and it took that long to get him to sign on. So we just need to keep trying and keep being persistent. That's what this is all about. Normally, after a lobby meeting, we would hear from teams on how their meeting went, but we have not, as a lobbying team, met to kind of do a debrief. We will have that meeting next week. So stay tuned next month for a more detailed look at how our meetings went and what we should do next time to be more successful. So John, did you have anything to add?
I do not, but thank you for all you've done, Sarah.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
All right, I'll move on to the next slide. This is our grass top status update. John and Court.
Hey, so John reached out to Matt Lanza of Space City Weather, and he's agreed to join us next month for our monthly meeting. So we look forward to that. So in the breakout session, and then also at our monthly meeting, which is at the end of this month, July 31st, we'll talk about that. And between now and then, we want to develop questions for Matt. So if you're interested in that, you can email me or you can join us in the breakout group. And then also Joe alerted us to and inspired Texas to do a Texas-wide economist outreach and push for an op-ed opportunity. And so we're going to start working on that. So that entails us reaching out to economists, seeing if they want to get on this op-ed letter. So for more information, please join us in the breakout, email me, and also join us at the end of the month, July 31st, for our Grass Tops meeting. We're still continuing and pushing momentum for contacting churches and meteorologists and authors. So, John, do you have any other additions?
I do not. But thanks for taking over, Courtney.
Sure thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Court. Anything else?
That's all. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right. And Mark, you're up for grassroots.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so I did look at the, I guess it was CCL Latino and Spanish Community Outreach. And so they have some energy and ideas around that. So certainly in Houston, that should be a rich, rich field for us to explore. There was a part in there about Catholic outreach, because a lot of Hispanics are Catholic, and there's actually a team that may be able to help us do some presentations. So yeah, that will be a new area for grassroots. We're also continuing the calling campaign, and another restart on doing tabling. So we're going to be talking about where looking for tabling opportunities again.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else?
Nope.
I had just a quick question. Who has the tabling stuff?
I think Jimmy and I have some tabling stuff. Unless, oh, John, did we drop that off to you? Do you still have that?
Oh, I
John
think I
Seagren?
do have, yeah, I think I do have a bag, yes.
All right.
I think that's all we have, but I will check.
And I have 2 tents, different size tents from Clayton Greenbaum, and I have a bag, and I have lots of, I think, clipboards and stuff. So I have stuff.
Wanted to make sure that you didn't take it to DC.
We'll make sure when we move, if we have anything, we're going to get packed up in the next couple of weeks. So we'll make sure to hand it off before we move.
See what we have in the chat here.
Oh, I like that chat.
Ah,
How do we get
Kristen,
involved?
Kristen has a question about how do I volunteer to help with tabling? So tabling is a grassroots activity. And Mark, can you reach out directly to Christian about that? Mark, you're on.
Sure.
Okay. So Christian, if we have time at the end here, I'm not sure how our time is doing. We're going to go into breakout sessions, and you'll have an opportunity to join the breakout session for grassroots and find out more about that. And thank you for asking that question.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on. And this is now the media team, which is, I'm the leader of the media team as well as the chapter lead. This page is filled up. We had a lot of activity regarding media during the month of June, and I want to just read through this. One of the reasons I like to list all these activities is really to give recognition to the people that volunteered and provided their time to do all of these activities. And the first one is Dory. As I was reading through my news articles and scanning through, as I always do, looking for good information, I found that Dory had given an interview back in April with media called Texas Climate News. And the interview was about the Sunnyside Solar Project, which Dory is a key contributor to the Sunnyside Solar Project. So Dory, thank you for the interview. And next time, don't keep it a secret. Let us know if you're giving these interviews. So that interview, the story was called Can a Solar Farm and an Old Landfill Site Improve Life for Use in Community? The next on May 31st, we had one of our CCL Houston newsletters that went out. And I certainly hope everybody on the meeting today is receiving them. Everyone who is a member of the Houston chapter or a member of any of the suburban Houston Metro chapters like League City, Sugar Land, Missouri City, as long as you're on our mailing list, you should be getting those. June 16th, another interview by Dory with the Houston Chronicle about solar panels. The story was called Considering Solar Panels for Your Roof. Here's what I learned. Dory has been very active. Thank you, Dory. June 21, another Houston newsletter went out. Also June 21, a letter to the editor written by Ryan Rafaner and submitted to the Houston Chronicle in response to heat demand threatens Texas power grid for second day. And if you click on that link, you'll see the actual letter to the editor. It's out on our WordPress site. June 22nd, I submitted a letter to the editor written by myself, and this was in response to Biden's plan for climate hitting a snag. And then June 30th, another LTE written by Kat Chen, one of our newer volunteers, submitted to the Chronicle in response to Interior Department gauging interest in Gulf of Mexico wind power. So I hope everybody does go out and look at those. We spent quite a bit of time, looking for articles to respond to and coming up with ideas and then actually getting it submitted. July 5th, our most recent Houston chapter newsletter is out there. You can click on the link to see what's in there. And then July 5th, an op-ed written by Wakar and submitted to the New York Times. The title is called U.S. Oil Majors Stockholder Votes Must Be Converted to Real Change. So thank you, Wakar, for that. And then a plug for our next Houston Media Team meeting, July 21st at 8 p.m. Moving on, then, as I always do, I have a few examples here of what we're putting out on our social media from CCL Houston. This first one here is a new video put out by CCL National on the questions, why put a price on carbon? And the answer is very simple. A carbon price is the single most powerful tool available to reduce America's carbon pollution. And we'll start seeing tangible results in as little as 9 months. So I thought that was a good one to put out. Here was another very, very interesting article that I was not aware of before, but here in the news, Ford is producing more Mustang Mach-E EVs than gas-powered Mustang. And that's an important milestone for Ford and for helping to solve climate change and for the auto industry in general. So, wow, right? I didn't know that. That's interesting. Here, another view of our current CO2 levels in relation to the scientific data over the past 800,000 years. So circled in red, you can see where we currently are with CO2 emissions into the atmosphere compared to the previous 800,000 years, based on scientific study of core samples pulled up from the Arctic and Antarctic. And we've never been this high. CO2 emissions are not slowing, they're continuing to increase. This was a news article that was put on the air by CNN, why we need a carbon tax and dividend to reduce CO2 emissions. And so this was a video, and in the post that went out on Twitter, the link was there to the video for people to click on that and see what was reported by CNN. And as we always do, when there's something relevant, we always tag our members of Congress in the Houston area so that they get to see what we're putting out as well. Another in the news article, quite shocking, ground temps reached 118 degrees in the Arctic Circle. This was, what, a week or two ago. It's quite scary, actually. And here was our thank you put out on social media to Rep. Lloyd Doggett for becoming another co-sponsor of HR 2307. Thank you to Lloyd Doggett. This was the tweet about one of our letters to the editor. And this was the one about the Texas power grid that was written by Ryan. One more here. This was an amazing video put out by a retired Air Force general on why the military is concerned about climate change and what the impact is to the military. So this was a tweet with the link to the video. And that's what I had for media. So Dory, back to you.
And Joe, a question in the chat came that, he's like, oh, are these all already out there? And they are. And how do we follow you? How do we follow all this good work? By tweeting? Tell me again, Tell us.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So that's one of the reasons I asked to have that added to the email that goes out to the new volunteer members so that they do know how to connect to us. On Twitter, our handle is @CCL Houston. In fact, let me just put that in the chat window again. That's Twitter. And on Facebook, we're basically CCL Houston.
Joe, you're sending those to me directly.
Ah, how did that happen? Thank you.
Because I sent you a message earlier about the candidate.
Thank you.
All right, so Joe, you work on that, and that's great. So we can all help expand his messaging and the good messaging that's happening by retweeting, is my understanding. So.
Exactly. We want all of our members to like our social media posts and tweets and to retweet them. And by doing that, we get the most effective, media coverage possible.
And to that point, when I tell people you should just join CCL, become a member, you don't even have to join one of the levers, just become a member, because numbers matter to our politicians. And the same way then that the number of likes or the retweets or the just getting our message out, that matters too. So good. All right. So that's what we do at Chapter Development. We welcome new members. You may have gotten a call from me or Mark, and we send you an email that has too much information, but as much information as we think we can ply you with on ways you can get involved in the Houston chapter. We want you to please consider joining our Slack channel. I didn't know there was anyway, I think that's a typo, so I'll correct that. But the Slack channel is our way of communicating within our Houston chapter about upcoming meetings and events that happen in between our monthly meetings. And so by being on the Slack channel, you would hear when the next tabling event was, and you'd be able to volunteer with the leader, the liaison leader there. So ask, when you go into the breakout, ask how to join Slack. And then I just encourage everybody, if you're, so you've come to this, if you're part of another group, like I'm sitting at Emerson Church, we usually used to meet here in person, and we probably will in the future. Just getting people within your other social networks to consider becoming a member of Citizens Climate Lobby. Again, the more people we have, the stronger the lobbying power we have, because numbers matter. And we were happy to meet this morning, Court and I, down in Sugar Land at the Lost Creek Park, and walk along the we walked around the trail and had a nice time. We're going to do that again. It's just, I got to know Court better. I'd like to get to know you all better. It's been hard after this year of COVID. So we'll pick a time in August. It'll be earlier on a Saturday morning because we want to avoid the heat, but it's just lovely to get out and appreciate this planet that we are trying to protect. So you'll look for Joe's newsletter. It'll be in that. We'll announce it by the time the next newsletter comes out, and look for it also on Slack. We'll announce it in the chapter development. And I thank you for being an advocate for the climate. And that's it from our chapter development, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Dory. Going on to the next page. Here's where in our agenda we break out into our separate lever sessions. For anyone that's new joining our chapter for the first time, Dory, are you still going to be able to do the breakout sessions for us to create them?
Yep.
And,
Yep,
okay.
I've got them, except I've tried it where you could pick your own, and then I'll help whoever's left to move them into the right breakout room. But in theory, they're going to be able to pick their own. And so we have 3 breakout groups and 1 easy, just stay in the main room, don't do anything. That's if you're chapter development or lobby team with Dory and John, are you going to go to grass tops? Oh, I see. Okay. So with me, just stay in the room. If you want to just, you don't know where to go, happy to stay in the main room. But if you know you want to go to grass tops or grassroots or media, I'm going to start these rooms, and you're going to be able to pick which one you want to go to. And if you're still left in the main room after, and Joe, you'll stop sharing, then I will place you where you want to go. Okay, here we go. The grand experiment. I'm opening all rooms. So hopefully you'll see something where you can choose. I've already assigned, Joe, John, I may not have assigned you. I didn't assign you properly. All right, people are choosing. And I can help as you go. So Kristen, would you like to stay in the main room?
Can I go to grassroots?
Grassroots, absolutely. I'm going to assign you to grassroots. And Dana, would you like to stay in the main room?
Yeah, I'll just stay in chapter development. Thanks.
Good, I'd love to chat with you. And then Hans, where do you want to go? And you might be muted. And then Jack T, where do you want to go? Jim Tucker, where do you want to go?
Main room's fine.
Main room's fine. Okay. Judith?
I want to go to grass tops.
All right, let me put you in grass tops. Matt, you're welcome to stay here or go where you'd like.
Yeah, I'll hang out here. I got a 6-year-old I got to take to dance class in 10 minutes.
Oh, I love it. I love
Hang
it.
out here for right now.
And Sarah, you should be lobbying, so stay here. Okay.
Yeah, I'll stay here.
Perfect. All right. So anybody else feel like they shouldn't be in the main room? We have Dana, Hans, Jack, Jim, Matt, and Sarah, and myself. All right. I can put this away then, and we can focus on this group. So Sarah, when is the move?
So we are moving Jimmy to Pearland at the end of the month, and then I'll be moving to DC in mid-August. Date TBD. I'm going apartment hunting next weekend. So I'm kind of multitasking here and looking up neighborhood crime statistics.
All right. Good luck. Good luck with that. And Dana, how long have you been involved with CCL Dallas Fort Worth?
Since September.
Okay. And should I get you that name of that person I just sent your way, or
Yeah, just in case. Yeah,
right.
I don't want to lose anybody. You never want to lose anybody, right?
All right. So I have we have a Google spreadsheet that both Mark and I and others who want it have access to, and his name is Jonathan Armstrong.
Okay.
And I will go ahead and put his email and phone number in the chat. What's embarrassing is that twice we tried to have him move. He explained it to me, and I asked CCL to help me move him, and then it got put back in, and I forgot. I called him again. All right, so let me get this chat. All right, so Jonathan Armstrong, and there's his email. Okay.
Thank you for that, Dory.
You're welcome. And Hans, I'm curious, another thing we're doing, and so if you want to talk lobbying, tell me, but another thing we're doing is we're trying to weed out bad emails and things like that. And I've had a couple from Atascocita, and that's your area. Is that not correct? Oh, and you're muted. And maybe I just can't hear you. Yeah, never mind. I can't. You might.
Maybe his microphone's not working.
Yeah, maybe the microphone. Sometimes you have to call back in again. All right. So anyway, in chat, let's talk offline about how, if I find someone has unsubscribed or has, if I find some Atascocita stuff, I should be sending them to you, I think. Yes. Okay. All right, Jack, tell me about yourself. Are you relatively new? Have you been a CCL member a long time? And you're muted. Oh, no, I can't hear it. I'll ask to unmute you. There we go.
All right, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Been here, I think, the better part of since the beginning of the year. I stayed here because I was confused in the beginning. I was trying to go with the lobbying. Is that with another group now, or is that?
Nope, lobbying is right here, and
That's Sarah. Okay.
right. And so go ahead. You guys ask your questions of Sarah.
Yeah. No. So I mean, Sarah put me in contact with the liaison for my congressional district. So I'm in McCall's district, Texas 10, and we actually tried having a meeting with him with his staff yesterday, and it fell through again. So we're trying to get organized in that, but that's okay. We'll see what comes up. Honestly, I've been crazy busy. I spend most of my time lately in Midland for my job. So, and it's probably be a little calmer in the coming weeks if we get it done.
And
for me,
one thing I've learned is patience is a virtue, both as we lobby and because we do it with respect and gratitude and appreciation, we generally are welcomed back, even if it didn't work the first time, or if we did feel we didn't make headway, we are generally welcomed back the next time. So keep on keeping on. But Sarah, do you have more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so you guys they've told you you're going to get a meeting, and then what, they don't show up or they cancel?
Yeah, well, first they don't respond. It's hard to get a slot, and then we got a slot, and she gave us her lunch hour, and then about half hour before we're supposed to meet, Matt, who's the liaison, said, hey, she canceled and wants to find another date, and she hasn't said when that would be yet. So
okay, well, that's very promising that they're responding to you. I know it's frustrating, but yeah, like Dory said, persistence. So yeah, I think you'll be able to meet with them. Yes. Yeah, I actually have a meeting with Matt this afternoon. We're going to have a quick talk about like how to lobby districts that are really heavily in the oil and gas space, especially in refining and chemicals. We've got a good pitch for the upstreams, like the oil extraction, but we're going to have a quick talk on like how do we sell this to people that are concerned about refiners and chemical producers and that sort of thing. So that should be interesting for your district.
Yeah, so he wanted to, well, I just give my intro because I work for a chemical company. I'm served oil and gas. I'm not admitted a lot. I have some conservative roots from a Christian background. And so he said, if you just bring that up to them, he says, that's really good for them to hear that part of our, population is represented in the CCL voices. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you know this, but also the company I work for, I do not speak for them, but they have their own, they have a pledge to go carbon neutral as a chemical company by 2050.
Wow,
and
that's awesome.
We have a whole strategy that was announced. You can find it at public. I can give the links if you want, if you're interested. But just
do you work for BASF, Jack? Am I remembering that correctly? Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That would be great to bring up in when you do get a meeting. That would be great to bring up, even though they know you don't speak on behalf of the company, but they really like to hear employees' perspectives on these things.
And maybe a grass tops, effort that maybe that we could get, work with a company to actually endorse legislation if they're.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I've asked them about that, and they've had contact with CCL representatives. They seem to be hesitant. This was a couple months ago. They were very hesitant to put anything, to go behind anything that didn't have bipartisan support. So at that time, there were only Democrats behind the legislation.
Okay.
So they were like, well, not yet.
Man, that's so tough because it's like their support would make it so much easier to get Republicans on board, and they want Republicans on board before they'll sign on. So it's like a chicken egg scenario here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's great that there's at least discussions that are happening.
And Joe and Kat, welcome back to the main room.
Thank you.
We didn't really set a time with which to bring people back. I realize that.
Okay.
I'll let you say when's a good time.
Maybe
Jim,
few
how
more
are you
minutes.
doing?
Oh, mighty fine. I just got finished with one of my volunteer gigs, so I'll have a little more time to spend with this and try and stay connected with all the back and forth over time.
Is your interest in lobbying or helping with chapter development, or is you still seeking where you might want to be involved?
Well, in the past, I've been at some of the lobbying meetings. I missed the last one that we had a couple of weeks ago. Some came up at home. So, but that's, we met a couple of times ages ago with Poe, and, didn't make any progress, but at least he was polite. So every little bit helps.
Hope springs eternal. All right. So you're connected then with your Texas O2 group.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Hans is saying yes. And Joe, just so you know, Hans, we can't hear him. He's good with the chat. And I think just next time, Hans, what I do, test the mic early on and then drop off and come back on again. In fact, if you want to do that right now, drop off. And sometimes you have to restart your computer, but anyway, okay.
And I've run into occasionally when some of those things don't work, either the video or the audio. Sometimes there's a software upgrade, and you can do it in the middle of the meeting. So give that a try.
With my headphones that I wear, I've discovered that if I'm having a problem, I simply have to unplug the cable and then plug it back in. A very, very quick solution, and that clears it up very easily and quickly.
All right.
Just for myself.
Hans, let's test it again. How
Hello?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Hey.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah.
Technology's wonderful.
While we have extra time, hey, Matt, just some quick feedback to you. This is Joe again, chapter leader for Citizens Climate Lobby. You were mentioning about, working in oil and gas. And it's actually very interesting because many of our members here in the Houston chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby have all either worked previously in oil and gas or have retired. I'm an example. Jim Tucker's an example. Hans is an example. And we've worked for the majors, Exxon, Shell, Chevron, whatever it is. And so when we go into our lobby meetings, for example, I'm also in Texas 02 with Dan Crenshaw, along with Hans and Jim. Obviously Dan's a very Republican person, but it's good for us to bring our oil and gas industry experience back to him when we're having our meetings. So it actually helps out quite a bit, I feel. Hans, you want to comment on that?
No, I sent Matt a private chat making that very point that a lot of us, were either currently or were employed in the oil and gas industry. And I was kind of trying to reinforce the instincts that he expressed, early in the meeting. I think he's spot on in thinking about this definitely the right way.
Sarah's another one.
least
She
from my
was with
perspective.
Exxon as well.
Yeah, I've got about another 3 weeks of employment with ExxonMobil.
Well, good for you.
Yeah,
I was there for over 39 years, so you got a long and rocky road to go.
Hey, folks, I got to run. I really appreciate you letting me in, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Matt, so much for joining. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
You too.
You're muted, Dory.
I'd love to learn about people in this smaller setting. So I don't know, Kat, I know you're involved in the media, but I'd love to hear more about how you found CCL and how long you've been a member.
Hi. So my name's Kat. I am part of the media team, and that was the first meeting that I went to, was last month's media team meeting. I found CCL whenever I was looking for ways to volunteer virtually over the summer. I'm a high school student. I'm a senior. And I just wanted to find a way to help make an impact, especially on policy, because that's something that I have like a heightened interest in, especially after doing lots and lots of research last year. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and happy to help out.
We are lucky to have you. Thank you.
Hey, Dory, why don't we start bringing everybody back so we can get wrapped up, I think.
Within that 1 minute.
Dana, when everybody comes back, do you want to give a plug for the next coffee and conversation?
Yeah, sure. That would be awesome. Thank you for thinking of that. I went ahead and put the Eventbrite link in the chat.
Great.
And that's a good link to have if you want to invite people who aren't in CCL. Of course, you can also get it that way as well.
And I always include those in our chapter newsletter that goes out.
Thank you, Joe.
Dory, let us know when everybody is back.
I think the gang's all here.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up the meeting here. Before we do, though, for those that don't know Dana, she's from our CCL Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. She does quite a bit of work there, and she's visiting with us today. And so Dana's going to give us a plug for the Coffee and Conversation event that happens, when is it, the last Saturday of the month?
It's always the fourth Saturday of the month, and the next one is July 24th at 11 a.m. And this is Coffee and Conversation, and it's always going to be online on Zoom. So it's something that's a statewide thing, actually. So it's for all of us. And the next one is going to be presented by John Harris Alexander. He's in the San Antonio chapter, and he is part of the distribution and operations associate for a wholesale meat company in San Antonio. So he's going to talk to us about regenerative ranching. That's hard to say. And just talking about like the industrialization of the food system and where our food comes from, and just being more environmentally sustainable. So that should be pretty interesting. And always at Coffee and Conversation, it's about a 25-minute presentation followed by just chatting. So it's a really cool experience. And I put a link in the chat for you guys. This is the Eventbrite link. So this is something you can share with everybody. That includes non-members, because it's just a really good grassroots tool as well to use for outreach. So I hope you guys can attend. It's July 24th. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Dana. And the last one that I attended, that was where I learned about the outreach to Latinos in the Spanish-speaking community, and that was a really, really good event. So it's well worth attending if people are available and have the time to join. All right, so to wrap up our meeting, any feedback in general about the meeting today? Anything that was new for people that people have learned, or other feedback on things, other information you might like to see, or how maybe we can improve our meetings going forward? Any feedback that anyone has?
I think it was great having a congressional candidate sit in on most of our meeting and, give us his insight. I think, I know that may not be the easiest thing to do for every meeting, but yeah, the more of that we can get, I think that's really constructive.
I agree. That was very good.
Dory, is the plan to have in-person meetings at your church regularly?
When you all are ready, what we did today with Court and I didn't work because we go breakout into breakout sessions. So we still have to figure out the technology. I can get the computer and the projector, and I think that I can do the one person on a computer, and then they go break out. They go into separate areas for phone. They bring their phone with them. So yes, that could work. All I need to do, if we're limited to 15 and for now, that's the, but I think if we're doing combined, yes, next month I will make sure we've reserved so people could come, and we don't have to be outside. We can be inside, but it's just
I noticed that while you're outside, there was quite a bit of background noise just from being outside.
So we should be inside. That's a good lesson. And yes, I will do that for next week.
Is there a good internet connection there?
Yes, this has all been by internet. They've really good connection. And so I will make sure that we RSVP, and people have to sign a covenant. They have to agree to inside behavior with, I believe there might be needs for masks still inside. But I'll review and I'll get that around to people.
Okay, great. Any other feedback from anybody?
Jim has his hand up.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been successful in linking into this for a while. For the national or global meeting following, do we just stay on this connection, or should I look for another link?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Go to the slide deck, and you should have my link to the slide deck. We're able to see that link and open up the slide deck.
I'll look for that thing.
Let me put the link in one more time so everyone has that. And anyway, the reason that I'm mentioning that is that the link to join that next speaker, it is a different link, and I had included that link on that particular slide deck. So just click on here to go to the slide deck, and then go to that slide. In fact, let me see, do I still have the slides open? Just to try to make it easier for you. Let me find that for you.
Yeah, I just saw the cover slide.
Looking for it. Okay, I found it. I'll put it into the chat window also.
And Joe, we want to take a picture after that, and then we want to make sure everybody's on Slack if who wants to be on Slack.
Yeah. Okay, I just put those links into the chat. Can you see that, Jim? You're on mute. You found it?
Got it. Thumbs up.
Perfect. Okay, so now is there anyone who would like to join our Slack channel who's not already on it?
All right, Kristen. Yeah.
Kristen. So Dory, you know how to add people?
The theory is I do. I'm such a space cadet today. So Kristen, I'm going to find your email in our roster because you are Houston Central.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll find Kristen Newell and I will send you an email to invite you.
Okay, thanks, Tori.
Yep.
Anyone else who'd like to join who's not already on Slack? All right, so we covered that. And the last thing is we always like to get a group photo so we can put it out on our social media. So if everybody would like to smile for us. All right. Thank you. All right, I got it. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Bye
you
now.
guys.
Everyone,
Bye, everybody.
bye.